Welcome, Whispering Bee family. Today we listen to the story of true love conquers all, but nobody tells you what happens when the person you loved comes back and has no idea who you are. Paige spent 2 years believing William was dead. She saw his name on a list. She went to the memorial. She wore black for months. And the whole time he was alive in a hospital bed 3 states away, staring at a journal he'd written but couldn't remember writing, looking at a name he didn't recognize. Paige. The year is 2039. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. My name is Robert and I'm 21. My parents just told me the full story last month. Not the version they've been telling people for years. The real one. The messy one. The one that almost didn't have a happy ending. And I'm going to tell you because I think we spend too much time pretending love stories are simple. They're not. Sometimes the person you love forgets you completely. Sometimes you have to fall in love with them all over again. Sometimes you have to teach someone to remember why they chose you in the first place. So yeah, this is that story. Paige and William, my parents met in high school, junior year. Chemistry class, which my dad says is ironic because there wasn't any chemistry at first. My mom was the kind of girl who sat in the front row and actually took notes. My dad was the kind of guy who showed up late and borrowed a pencil. She thought he was careless. He thought she was uptight. But then they got paired up for a lab project, and my dad realized she wasn't uptight. She was just scared of failing. And my mom realized he wasn't careless. He was just bored because he already understood everything the teacher was saying. He'd sit there during lectures reading ahead in the textbook, and she'd watch him out of the corner of her eye and wonder why someone that smart was pretending not to care. The project was on chemical reactions. They had to mix different solutions and record what happened. And my dad, being my dad, decided to go off script. He started mixing things the teacher didn't assign just to see what would happen. My mom panicked. She told him they were going to fail. He told her sometimes you learn more from breaking the rules than following them. He was right. Their experiment created this unexpected reaction that even the teacher couldn't fully explain. They got an A+, and my mom started seeing him differently after that. Like maybe his recklessness wasn't actually reckless. Maybe it was brave. They started dating 2 months later. My dad asked her out after a football game. He didn't play football. He was in the stands eating nachos, and she was there with her friends, and he just walked up and said, "You want to get out of here?" And she said yes without thinking, which was not like her at all. Their first date was at a diner that's not there anymore. They sat in a booth for 4 hours talking about everything. She told him about how her parents were getting divorced, and she felt like she had to be perfect all the time to keep things from falling apart. He told her about how his dad had expectations he didn't know how to meet, and sometimes it felt easier to not try at all. They were both carrying weight they didn't know how to put down, and I think that's what made them fit. They saw the heaviness in each other and didn't try to fix it. They just sat with it. They dated all through junior and senior year, 3 years total before everything fell apart. And from what my mom says, those 3 years were good, not perfect. They fought sometimes. My dad had a temper he didn't know how to control. My mom had a habit of shutting down when things got hard, but they loved each other in that intense way you love someone when you're young and you think love is enough to solve everything. The first big fight happened during senior year. College applications were due, and my dad didn't want to apply anywhere. He said college felt like a waste of time, that he could learn more on his own. My mom was furious. She'd worked so hard to get good grades, to build a future, and here he was throwing his away. They didn't talk for a week. My mom cried every night. My dad punched a wall and broke 2 knuckles. And then he showed up at her house at midnight and told her he'd applied to 3 schools. Not because he wanted to, because losing her hurt more than doing something he didn't believe in. That should have been a red flag, but when you're in love, you don't see red flags. You see someone willing to change for you, and you think that's romantic. They made up. Things went back to normal. They graduated. Summer came. And that's when my dad started talking about joining the U.S. Army. He didn't tell my mom right away. He just started mentioning it casually. How he didn't know what he wanted to do. How college felt wrong. How maybe he needed structure, discipline, purpose. My mom didn't take him seriously at first. She thought it was just him being restless like always. But then one day in late July, he told her he'd already talked to a recruiter, that he was thinking about enlisting, that he needed to do something that mattered. My mom lost it, not because she didn't support the military, but because he'd made a decision about his entire life without including her in the conversation. They'd been together 3 years, and he was talking about leaving like it was just another one of his impulsive experiments. She told him he was running away. He told her she didn't understand. She said if he left, they were done. He said if she really loved him, she'd wait. It was the kind of fight where you say things you don't mean because you're scared, and you don't know how to say you're scared, so you say something cruel instead. He enlisted 2 weeks later, August 2003. My mom didn't go to see him off. She told herself she didn't care. She threw herself into college applications and pretended like the last 3 years hadn't happened. But at night she'd pull out the box of things he'd given her, notes he'd passed her in class, a keychain from their first road trip, a photo booth strip from homecoming, and she'd just stare at them until she felt numb. My dad left for basic training, and for the first month, nothing. No calls, no letters. My mom told herself that was fine. They'd broken up. She needed to move on. But then in September, a letter came. Just 1 page, front and back, in his messy handwriting. He didn't apologize. He didn't say he missed her. He just told her about basic training, how hard it was, how he'd thought about quitting 10 times in the first week, how he kept going because he didn't want to prove her right about him running away. My mom didn't write back, but she kept the letter. Another one came in October, and another in November, and my mom read every single one, but she never responded. She told herself she was over him, but she wasn't. She was just punishing him for leaving. In December, right before Christmas, she finally wrote back, just a short note. She told him she was proud of him, that she hoped he was okay, that she missed him even though she didn't want to. He called her 2 days later from a payphone at the base. They talked for 20 minutes before his time ran out. He told her he loved her. She told him she loved him too, but she didn't know if that was enough anymore. He said he'd make it enough when he got back. That was the last real conversation they had before everything went wrong. He finished basic training in January and got deployed in March. Iraq. He couldn't tell her much about where he was or what he was doing, but the letters kept coming. Not as often. Maybe one every few weeks, but they came. My mom was in college by then, freshman year. She tried to date other people, but it never felt right. She'd go on a date and spend the whole time comparing the guy to my dad. She kept his letters in a shoebox under her bed and read them when she couldn't sleep. In May, the letters stopped. At first, my mom thought maybe he was just busy. Deployment was unpredictable. She'd gone weeks without hearing from him before. But then June came and went. July, August, nothing. She tried calling the contact number he'd given her, but no one could tell her anything. Privacy regulations, operational security, a bunch of bureaucratic nonsense that basically meant she had no idea if he was alive or dead. She started checking the news obsessively. Every report about casualties in Iraq made her sick. She'd scan the names they released, but his was never there, and she didn't know if that was good or if they just hadn't found him yet. By September, 6 months of silence, she was barely functional. She'd go to class, but she couldn't focus. She'd sit in the library and stare at the same page of her textbook for an hour. Her roommate was worried about her. Her parents were worried about her. But she couldn't explain what she was feeling because she didn't have words for it. It wasn't quite grief because she didn't know for sure. But it wasn't hope either because hope was starting to feel dangerous. She made it through her sophomore year like that, just going through the motions, waiting for something, anything, a letter, a phone call, confirmation that he was okay or confirmation that he wasn't. Either would have been better than the not knowing. And then in March 2006, 2 years after he deployed, almost 3 years since he'd left, she got the call. Not from him, from the military. A casualty assistance officer, very professional, very sorry. They regretted to inform her that his name had been added to the list of fallen soldiers. There'd been an incident, an IED, multiple casualties. They couldn't give her details. they were still notifying next of kin. My mom asked if they were sure, if they'd confirmed it was him. The officer said the identification process was ongoing, but his name was on the preliminary list and she should prepare herself. She hung up the phone and didn't move for 3 hours. Her roommate found her sitting on the floor of their dorm room just staring at the wall. My mom told her what happened, and her roommate held her while she cried. But my mom says she didn't really cry that much. She just felt empty, like someone had scooped out everything inside her and left her hollow. The first night was the hardest. She kept picking up her phone to call him. Muscle memory. For 3 years she'd wanted to call him and couldn't. Now she'd never be able to again. Her brain knew that, but her hands didn't. She'd unlock her phone and pull up his contact and stare at it until the screen went dark. She didn't sleep, just lay in bed watching the ceiling fan go around and around. Her roommate stayed up with her, didn't say anything, just sat on the floor beside the bed in case my mom needed something. At some point around 4 a.m., my mom said, "I told him we were done if he left. That was the last thing I said to him in person, that we were done." Her roommate said, "He knew you didn't mean it." "Did he, though?" my mom said. "Because I never told him I didn't mean it. I never said I was sorry. I just let him think I hated him and now he's gone and I can't take it back." That's what broke her, not the grief itself, the regret, the knowing that her last words to him were angry words and she'd never get to replace them with better ones. The next few weeks were the worst of her life, worse than the year of silence, because at least during the silence she could hope. Now she had nothing. People kept telling her to eat. She'd sit at the cafeteria with a tray of food and move it around her plate until someone stopped watching. Then she'd throw it away. Food tasted like nothing. Everything tasted like nothing. She stopped showering, stopped changing clothes. Her roommate would lay out clean clothes and my mom would just put on the same jeans and hoodie she'd worn the day before. What was the point? Who was she getting dressed for? Her mom called every day. Her dad called every day. She'd answer sometimes just so they'd stop worrying, but she had nothing to say. They'd ask how she was and she'd say fine, and they'd know she was lying, but what could they do? They were 5 hours away and she was falling apart and nobody knew how to catch her. She went to the memorial service they held for soldiers from their region. His name was on the program, 7th from the top. She stared at it for so long the letters stopped looking like letters, just shapes on paper. The service was at a church she'd never been to. Big, too many people, everyone in black. She sat in the back and listened to people talk about sacrifice and service and honor. A chaplain got up and said something about how these men and women gave everything for their country, how they died heroes. My mom wanted to stand up and scream, because he wasn't a hero to her. He was just the boy who'd shared his lunch with her in chemistry class. The boy who'd driven 2 hours to surprise her on her birthday. The boy who'd cried in her arms after his grandfather died and made her promise not to tell anyone because he didn't want people to think he was weak. He wasn't a symbol. He was a person, her person, and he was gone. After the service, there was a reception, coffee and cookies in the church basement. People kept coming up to her asking how she knew him. She'd say they were friends. Couldn't bring herself to say more than that. If she said he was the love of her life, people would ask questions, want to comfort her. And she didn't want comfort. She wanted to rewind time. She left early, walked back to campus even though it was 2 miles and raining. Got back to her dorm soaked and shivering, and her roommate made her get in the shower. My mom stood under the hot water until it ran cold and realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd cried. She'd been too empty for tears. That changed that night. Something about the memorial made it real in a way it hadn't been before. She got into bed and started sobbing, not quiet crying, the kind of crying where you can't breathe, where your whole body shakes. Her roommate climbed into bed with her and held her, and my mom cried for 3 hours straight. Cried until her throat was raw and her eyes were swollen shut and she had nothing left. The next day she couldn't get out of bed, or the day after that. Her roommate brought her food she didn't eat, brought her water she didn't drink, brought her tissues that piled up on the nightstand. Her professors started emailing, asking where she was, if everything was okay. Her roommate responded for her, said there was a family emergency, which wasn't technically a lie. A week after the memorial, her parents showed up. They'd driven 5 hours without calling first because they were scared if they called my mom would tell them not to come. Her mom took one look at her and started crying. My mom was down 15 pounds, hadn't brushed her hair in days. The room smelled stale. Her dad didn't say anything, just pulled her into a hug and held her while she cried again. Turned out she did have more tears left. They stayed for 3 days. Her mom did laundry and cleaned the room and made my mom eat soup. Her dad called her professors and worked out a plan for her to make up missed work. Neither of them asked if she was okay because the answer was obvious. Before they left, her mom sat on the edge of the bed and said, "You have to keep going." "I don't know how," my mom said. "One day at a time," her mom said. "1 hour if you have to, you just keep going." "What if I can't?" "Then you call me," her mom said, "and I'll remind you how." Her parents left and my mom tried. She really did. She went to class. She did her homework. She showed up to her part-time job at the library and shelved books and checked out textbooks and smiled when people said hi. But inside she was screaming. She'd be sitting in lecture and suddenly remember the way he'd tap his pen against his desk when he was bored. She'd be walking across campus and see someone with the same build as him, and her heart would stop for a second before her brain caught up and reminded her it wasn't him. It would never be him again. She started having panic attacks. The first one happened in the library. She was reshelving books and her chest got tight and she couldn't breathe. She had to sit down on the floor between the stacks and put her head between her knees until the feeling passed. It happened again a week later, and again a week after that. She learned to recognize the warning signs, the tightness in her chest, the way her vision would get fuzzy at the edges. She'd find somewhere private and just breathe through it. Her roommate finally convinced her to see a counselor. The campus health center had free therapy for students. My mom made an appointment and almost canceled it 5 times before actually going. The counselor was nice, older woman, kind face. She asked my mom what brought her in, and my mom said, "Someone I loved died and I can't stop thinking about all the things I should have said." They talked for 50 minutes. The counselor asked questions my mom didn't want to answer, about the relationship, about the fight, about why she felt so guilty. At the end, the counselor said, "Grief is love with nowhere to go. You're going to carry this for a while, but carrying it doesn't mean it has to destroy you." My mom went back the next week, and the week after that, 2 months of sessions. The counselor taught her breathing exercises for the panic attacks, gave her strategies for the days when getting out of bed felt impossible, helped her understand that healing wasn't linear. But the counselor kept using words like closure and acceptance, and eventually my mom stopped going. Because how do you accept something you never wanted to happen? How do you close a door when you never got to say goodbye? She made it through that semester barely, failed 2 classes, got C's in 2 others. The only class she passed with a decent grade was her literature course, and that was only because the professor let her write about grief for her final paper. She wrote about love letters, about words on paper being all that's left when someone's gone. She got an A and cried when she got the paper back because she realized she'd been writing about him without meaning to. Everything came back to him. Summer came and she went home. Her parents walked on eggshells around her. Her dad would ask if she wanted to watch a movie and phrase it like she was doing him a favor by saying yes. Her mom would make her favorite foods and pretend it was a coincidence. She spent most of her time in her childhood bedroom, the room she'd grown up in, the room that still had posters from high school on the walls, the room where she'd spent hours on the phone with him when they first started dating. She'd lie on her bed and reread his letters. She had them organized by date, could chart their relationship through the letters. The early ones were short, awkward. He didn't know how to write about his feelings, so he'd just tell her about his day, what they had for breakfast, how many push-ups he had to do. Stupid stuff. But the later ones got deeper. He started writing about missing her, about how hard it was being away. about how he'd close his eyes and try to remember exactly what her laugh sounded like, and he was scared he was forgetting. There was one letter from right before he deployed that my mom had memorized. He'd written, "I don't know what's going to happen out there. I don't know if I'm coming back. But if I don't, I need you to know that loving you was the best thing I ever did. Even if you hate me for leaving. Even if you've moved on. Even if you never think about me again. Loving you made me better than I would have been without you." She must have read that letter 1,000 times that summer. Would trace her fingers over the words until the paper started to wear thin. Her friends tried to help. They'd invite her out, to the beach, to parties, to movie nights. She'd go sometimes just to make them stop asking, but she was never really there. She'd sit and smile and nod at the right times, but inside she was somewhere else. One night, her best friend from high school got frustrated with her. They were at a bonfire and everyone was laughing, and my mom was just staring at the fire, and her friend pulled her aside and said, "You have to stop doing this to yourself." "Doing what?" "This," her friend said. "The martyrdom, the refusing to move on, he's gone. And I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. But he's gone and you're still here and you have to start living again." My mom knew her friend was trying to help, but it felt like being told to betray him, like moving on meant forgetting, like being happy again meant he didn't matter. She went home early that night, cried in her car in her parents' driveway for an hour before going inside. August came, time to go back to school, junior year. Her parents helped her move back into her dorm. New roommate this time. The old one had graduated. The new one seemed nice, but my mom didn't have the energy to be friends. She threw herself into her classes this time. Figured if she couldn't be happy, she could at least be productive. She took 6 classes instead of 5. Joined 2 clubs she didn't care about. Picked up extra shifts at the library. She was busy every minute of every day. Didn't give herself time to think, because thinking meant remembering and remembering meant hurting. She got straight A's that semester, Dean's List. Her parents were proud, called to congratulate her, but my mom felt nothing. The grades were just numbers. Proof she was still functioning, but not proof she was okay. The 1-year anniversary of the call came in March. She didn't tell anyone. Just woke up that morning knowing it had been exactly 1 year since her life had split into before and after. She went to class like normal, did her homework like normal, worked her shift at the library like normal. And then when she got back to her dorm that night, she locked herself in the bathroom and cried in the shower so her roommate wouldn't hear. 1 year, 365 days. She'd survived every single one, but surviving wasn't the same as living. Spring semester ended. Summer came again, then fall. Senior year. She was 21 now, had a part-time job lined up for after graduation, had recommendations from professors, had a future that looked good on paper. But she still went to sleep every night thinking about him. Still had dreams where he was alive and woke up and had to remember all over again that he wasn't. 18 months turned into 2 years. She was graduating in May, had job interviews, had plans. Her parents kept asking if she was dating anyone and she'd change the subject. How could she date anyone else? How could she sit across from someone at a restaurant and pretend to care about their favorite movies or where they grew up when part of her was still stuck at 20 years old reading a letter that said, "I don't know if I'm coming back." She went on one date, November of senior year. A guy from her economics class asked her to coffee. He was nice, smart, made her laugh once, and she spent the whole hour comparing him to my dad and hating herself for it. She didn't go on a second date. She'd accepted by then that this was just her life now, that she'd carry this weight forever, that some part of her would always be 20 years old waiting for a letter that would never come, that she'd graduate and get a job, and maybe eventually the sharp edges of the grief would smooth out, but the grief itself would never really go away. She made peace with that, or thought she did. And then came November 2009. And then in November 2009, 3.5 years after he'd left, almost 4 years since she'd seen him, she got a letter in the mail. Not from the military, from a woman named Patricia, a nurse. The return address was from a VA hospital in Nevada. My mom almost threw it away without reading it. She got a lot of sympathy mail after the memorial service, and she'd stopped opening it months ago. But something made her open this one. Maybe curiosity, maybe fate, I don't know. The letter said, "Hello, Paige, you don't know me, but I think I'm caring for someone who knows you. His name is William, it's on his bracelet, but he doesn't remember it. He doesn't remember much of anything. But he has a journal, and your name is on every page." My mom read that sentence 5 times before her brain processed it. The letter went on. Patricia explained that she'd been working at the VA hospital for 8 years. That about 3 years ago, right around the time my mom got the call, a patient had been transferred there from a military hospital in Germany. Severe traumatic brain injury. Amnesia. No family contact information on file because his records had been damaged in the same incident that injured him. He'd been in a medically induced coma for months. When he woke up, he didn't know his name, didn't know where he was, didn't know who he'd been before. The staff had been trying to help him piece things together. And one day, about 6 months after he woke up, he'd asked for a notebook, said he kept having dreams, wanted to write them down. He filled that notebook in 3 weeks, then asked for another, and another. Patricia said she'd glanced at them once while cleaning his room and saw the same name written over and over. My mom's name. Different contexts, different memories, like his subconscious was trying to tell him something his conscious mind couldn't access. Patricia had done some searching, found my mom's contact information through her college, took a chance and wrote the letter. She ended with, "I don't know if this is him. I don't know if you want to know, but if you do, we're here." My mom called the hospital that night, spoke to Patricia, asked questions, got answers that didn't make sense but also made perfect sense. Yes, his age matched. Yes, his physical description matched. Yes, the timeline matched. But he didn't remember any of it, didn't remember enlisting, didn't remember Iraq, didn't remember her. Patricia said he'd been improving slowly. Physical therapy, cognitive therapy, but the memories weren't coming back. The doctors said they might never come back. That sometimes the brain protects itself by locking away trauma and everything connected to it gets locked away too. My mom asked if she could see him. Patricia said yes, but warned her to prepare herself, that he might not recognize her, that it might not be what she was hoping for. My mom didn't care. She bought a plane ticket that night, flew out 2 days later. Didn't tell anyone where she was going because she didn't know how to explain it. How do you tell people the person you've been grieving for 3 years might be alive? The hospital was in a small town outside Las Vegas. Desert everywhere. Flat and brown and endless. My mom took a taxi from the airport, and the whole drive she kept thinking she should turn back, that this was a mistake, that she was setting herself up for more heartbreak. The driver tried to make small talk, asked what brought her to Nevada. She said visiting a friend and left it at that. How do you explain to a stranger that you're going to see someone who's been dead for 3 years, except he's not actually dead, he just doesn't remember you exist? The hospital was smaller than she expected. Single story, beige stucco, American flag out front. The taxi pulled up to the main entrance and my mom just sat there. The driver turned around. "This the place?" "Yeah," she said, "this is it." She paid and got out and stood on the sidewalk with her overnight bag and thought about getting back in the taxi. Thought about going back to the airport. Thought about pretending this never happened. But she didn't. She walked through the automatic doors instead. Met her in the lobby. She was younger than my mom expected. Maybe early 30s, short dark hair, scrubs with little cartoon cats on them. She gave my mom a hug even though they'd never met and said, "I'm so glad you came." "I don't know why I'm here," my mom said. And it was true. She didn't know what she was hopping for, didn't know what this would solve. "Because you needed to know," said. "One way or another, you needed to see for yourself." They sat in the lobby for a few minutes. Explained the situation more fully. He'd been at the hospital for almost 3 years. The VA had been trying to locate family, but his records were a mess. The IED had damaged more than just him. It had destroyed a transport vehicle and most of the personnel files inside. "Does he ever talk about Iraq?" my mom asked. No, said. He doesn't remember being there, doesn't remember enlisting. As far as his brain is concerned, his life started 3 years ago when he woke up in a hospital bed. Does he know people are looking for him, that he had a life before? He knows something's missing, said, but he doesn't know what. It's like, imagine waking up one day and you know you're supposed to remember something important, but you can't access it. That's where he lives every day. My mom felt sick, and you think I can help? I don't know, said honestly, but those journals. He's been writing about someone, about feelings he doesn't remember having, about a person he can't picture. And your name is in every entry. That has to mean something. They walked down a long hallway, fluorescent lights, beige walls, smell of disinfectant and cafeteria food. Everything felt surreal, like she was watching herself from outside her body. My mom's hands were shaking. She kept wiping them on her jeans. What if he doesn't want to see me? What if this makes things worse for him? Then we'll know, said. But what if it makes things better? What if you're the piece he's been missing? They turned a corner and pointed to a room at the end of the hall. He's in there. Take your time. I'll be at the nurse's station if you need anything. My mom walked to the doorway and stopped. She could see him through the window, sitting in a wheelchair by the big window, thinner than she remembered, hair shorter, a scar running along his left temple. But it was him, alive, breathing, real. She stood there for probably 5 minutes just watching him. He was reading something. A book. His lips were moving slightly like he was sounding out the words. She used to make fun of him for that, the way he'd mouth along when he read. She made a sound, maybe a gasp, maybe a sob, because he looked up, turned his head toward the doorway, and their eyes met. No recognition, just polite curiosity, the way you'd look at a stranger who'd wandered into your space. My mom felt like she'd been punched. She'd known he wouldn't remember her, had warned her. But knowing and experiencing are different things. He smiled a little, uncertain. Hi, he said. His voice was the same. That almost broke her. Same voice, same slight rasp, same everything except the way he was looking at her like she was nobody. Hi, she managed. Her voice came out wrong, too high, too shaky. He set his book down on his lap. Do I know you? She wanted to say yes, wanted to say, you loved me. We were going to figure it out. You wrote me letters. You promised you'd come back. But instead she said, I'm an old friend. Instead she said, hi, I am. Something flickered across his face. Not recognition exactly, but something. Like hearing a song you can't quite place but you know you've heard before. He repeated her name slowly. That's a nice name, familiar somehow. Can I come in? She asked. Oh, yeah, of course. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sorry, I'm not great with social cues anymore. Brain injury and all that. She sat down, set her bag on the floor. Didn't know what to do with her hands, so she folded them in her lap. They looked at each other for a long moment. My mom was memorizing him, the scar on his temple, the way his hospital gown hung loose on his frame, the slight tremor in his left hand, all the ways he was the same and all the ways he was different. So, he said finally, you said we're friends. We were, she said, a long time ago. How long? About 7 years. She did the math in her head. They'd met in 2003. It was 2009 now. He nodded slowly. I don't remember 7 years ago. I don't really remember anything before about 3 years ago. I know, she said. They told me. Who's they? The nurse. She's the one who found me, who told me you were here. He looked confused. Why would she do that? My mom hesitated. You've been writing, in journals, about someone about me. His eyes widened slightly. You read them. No, she said quickly. Just told me that my name was in them. He relaxed a little, looked embarrassed. I write a lot of stuff I don't understand. The doctors say it might be my brain trying to process memories I can't access consciously. Dreams and feelings and fragments of things. What do you write about me? She asked softly. He rubbed the back of his neck. I don't know exactly, just feelings mostly. Like I know I'm supposed to remember someone important, someone who mattered, and your name shows up a lot, not in any specific context, just there, like my brain is trying to tell me something. My mom felt tears building but refused to let them fall. Do you want to know who I was? Who we were? He looked at her for a long time. Will it hurt? Probably, she said honestly. Will it hurt you, or will it hurt me? Both. He smiled sadly. Then maybe we should wait, get to know each other now before we dig up what I can't remember. So that's what they did. They talked for 2 hours, not about the past, about the present. She asked him about his days at the hospital. He told her about physical therapy, about the other patients, about how he'd learned to walk again 6 months ago and it felt like learning for the first time. She asked what he liked to do. He said he read a lot, drew sometimes though he wasn't very good at it, watched old movies in the rec room. He asked her what she did. She told him about college, about her major, about how she was graduating in a few months and had no idea what came next. You seem sad, he said suddenly. She looked up. What? Even when you're smiling, he said. You seem sad, like you're carrying something heavy. I am, she said. Want to talk about it? Not yet. Okay. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The sun was setting outside his window, orange light coming through. My mom watched him watch the sunset and wondered if he used to do this before, if watching sunsets was something his body remembered even if his mind didn't. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. Said you flew here. From where? Virginia. His eyebrows went up. That's far. Yeah. You came all this way just because your name was in some journals written by someone you knew 7 years ago. When he put it like that, it did sound crazy, but my mom just said, yes. Why? She looked him in the eye. Because I needed to know if you were real. Am I? Yeah, she whispered. You are. A nurse came in to take him to dinner. My mom stood to leave, but he said, will you come back tomorrow? If you want me to. I do, he said. I don't understand why yet, but I do. She came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. She stayed at a motel 10 minutes from the hospital and spent every visiting hour in his room. On the second day, she brought photos, printed copies of pictures she'd kept on her phone, pictures from high school, them at prom, at football games, on that road trip to the coast. He studied each one carefully. That's me, he'd ask, and she'd say yes, and he'd shake his head like he couldn't quite believe it. I look happy, he said, staring at a picture of them at the diner. Their first date. A friend had taken it without them knowing. You were, my mom said. Were you? Yes. He set the photos aside. Can I ask you something personal? Okay. Why did we stop being friends? She'd been dreading this question. We didn't stop being friends exactly. We wanted different things. And I was angry at you for choosing something that took you away from me. What did I choose? This, she said, gesturing to the hospital. The military. You enlisted and I told you not to go and you went anyway. He was quiet for a long time. Were you right? Should I not have gone? I don't know, she said. I was right that you'd get hurt, but I don't know if you'd have been happier staying. Do you think I regretted it? She remembered his letters, all the times he'd written about missing her, about whether he'd made a mistake. I think you regretted how it ended between us, she said carefully, but I don't think you regretted serving. On the third day, she brought the letters, all of them, 3 years' worth, packed carefully in the shoebox she'd been carrying around for years. You kept them, he asked. All of them. Can I read them? She handed him the box. They're yours, you wrote them. He opened the box slowly, pulled out the first letter, read it, then the second. He read for an hour straight while my mom sat there watching him read words he'd written to her but couldn't remember writing. Halfway through, he started crying, quiet tears just running down his face. He didn't wipe them away, just kept reading. When he finished the last letter, he set it down carefully and looked at her. I loved you. Yes. I mean, I really loved you. This isn't just teenage stuff. This is. I know, she said. Did you love me back? Yes. Do you still? That was the question she'd been avoiding, the one she didn't know how to answer. Because yes, she still loved him. But which him? The boy who wrote those letters or the man sitting in front of her who couldn't remember writing them? I don't know, she said finally. I loved who you were. I don't know who you are now. He nodded slowly. That's fair. He looked at the box of letters. Can I keep these? They're yours. That night back at the motel, my mom called her parents and told them where she was. Her mom cried. Her dad asked if she was okay. She said she didn't know, but she thought she might be. Is he the same? Her mom asked. No, my mom said, but he's alive, and that's enough for right now. On the fourth day, he told her about his journals. He had 7 of them now, all filled cover to cover with dreams and fragments and feelings he didn't understand. I write about you a lot, he said, but I never knew who you were, just that you were important, that I'd lost something when I lost you. Can I read them? She asked. He hesitated. They're pretty personal and kind of incoherent. I don't think I'm a very good writer. I don't care if you're good. I just want to understand. He brought out the journals, 7 spiral-bound notebooks, pages and pages of his handwriting, messy and rushed like he was trying to get the thoughts out before they disappeared. She read while he watched her read. Most of it didn't make sense. Fragments of dreams, feelings without context, but her name appeared again and again. Sometimes in full sentences. I think I knew someone named her name. I think she mattered. Sometimes just written over and over like he was trying to remember how it felt to write it. One entry made her stop, made her read it 3 times. Sometimes I dream about a girl. I can't see her face, but I can hear her laugh. It sounds like home, like the only place I was ever supposed to be. And when I wake up, I try to hold onto the sound, but it's gone. But the feeling stays, like I'm missing something, like I'm supposed to be looking for her, but I don't know where to look. I wrote her name today. I don't know why, but it felt right, like my hand remembered even if I don't. That entry was dated 6 months after he'd woken from the coma, 2 years before Patricia found her. You've been remembering me the whole time, my mom said. You just didn't know it was a memory. Does that help? He asked. I don't know yet. On the 5th day, she asked him what he wanted. If you could remember, she said, would you want to? He thought about it. I don't know. Part of me wants to know who I was, but part of me is scared. Scared of what? Scared I won't like who I was. Scared I did things I can't take back. Scared that remembering will hurt more than not knowing. It might, she said, but at least you'd know. Would you want me to remember? She'd asked herself that question 100 times in the past 5 days. Would it be easier if he remembered? Would it change anything? Or would it just give them both more to lose? I want you to be okay, she said finally, whether that includes remembering or not. That night, my mom called Patricia and asked about the discharge plan. He's stable enough to leave, Patricia said, but he has nowhere to go, no family we can contact. The VA can place him in a group home, but the wait list is long. What happens to him while he waits? He stays here. My mom thought about him sitting in that room by the window, staring at a life he couldn't remember, waiting for something he couldn't name. What if I take him? Patricia was quiet for a moment. You mean bring him home with you? Yes. You understand what that means? He'd need constant supervision, transportation to appointments, someone to make sure he takes his medication, someone to help if he has a bad day. I understand. And he might never remember you. He might always see you as a stranger who took him in. I know. Then why would you do this? My mom didn't have a good answer. Or maybe she did, but it sounded crazy when she said it out loud. Because I spent 3 years thinking he was dead, and he's not. And I'm not going to walk away now that I know he needs help. You're going to upend your entire life for someone who doesn't remember you. Yes. Patricia sighed. Okay, let me talk to his doctors, see what we can work out. The paperwork took 3 weeks. My mom flew home to finish her last semester of college, to pack up her apartment, to explain to her parents what she was doing. Her mom thought she was making a mistake. He's not the same person you knew. I know. You're 22 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you. You don't have to be his caretaker. I'm not doing this because I have to. I'm doing it because I want to. Her dad was more understanding. You're sure about this? No, she said honestly, but I'm doing it anyway. She graduated in December. Her parents came to the ceremony. She wore her cap and gown and walked across the stage and accepted her diploma and felt nothing. The accomplishment felt hollow, like it didn't matter when he wasn't there to see it. 2 days later, she flew back to Nevada, signed the discharge papers, helped him pack the few belongings he had, some clothes, his journals, the box of letters she'd given him. They drove back to Virginia together, 18-hour drive. They split it over 2 days, stopped at cheap motels, ate at diners, talked about nothing important. He asked if she was nervous. She said yes. He asked if she regretted this. She said ask her again in 6 months. They got to her apartment 2 days before Christmas. She'd set up the room, put extra pillows on the bed, made it as welcoming as she could. She also bought a comfortable couch for the living to sleep for herself. He stood in the doorway looking at the room. This is too much. It's not. I'm a stranger. You don't owe me this. You're not a stranger, she said. You're just someone I'm getting to know again. The first month was hard. Not bad, just hard. He was polite, grateful, but distant in a way that hurt. He'd thank her for dinner like she was a host and he was a guest. He'd apologize for being a burden every single day, multiple times a day. I'm sorry I'm taking up your space. You're not. I'm sorry you have to drive me to appointments. I don't mind. I'm sorry, I can't remember why you're doing this. That one she never had a good answer for. The apartment felt too small sometimes. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, tiny kitchen. She'd given him the bedroom and taken the couch. Told him it was temporary until she figured out a better arrangement, but weeks went by and she was still sleeping on the couch. Her back hurt. She wasn't sleeping well. She'd wake up at 3 a.m. and hear him moving around in the bedroom and wonder if he was okay, if he was having nightmares, if he needed something. But she never went in, didn't want to intrude, didn't want him to feel like she was hovering. She took him to his follow-up appointments. Physical therapy twice a week at the VA clinic 40 minutes away. Cognitive therapy once a week with a specialist who cost more than my mom wanted to think about, but the VA covered most of it. The physical therapist said he was doing great, getting stronger, range of motion improving. He'd been in a wheelchair when she first met him, but by the end of January, he was using a cane. By February, he could walk short distances without it. The cognitive therapist was less optimistic, said memory recovery was unpredictable, that some patients got everything back, some got nothing, most were somewhere in the middle, and there was no way to know which category he'd fall into until it happened or didn't. My mom asked if there was anything she could do to help. The therapist gave her a list. Show him familiar objects. Tell him stories from his past. Don't push, but don't hide things either. Let him process at his own pace. So she tried. She'd cook foods he used to like. He'd eat them and say they were good, but no recognition. No, this tastes like home moment, just polite appreciation. She'd play music he used to love. He'd listen and nod along, but no spark. No memory of slow dancing in her kitchen senior year. No memory of the road trip where they'd sung the same song 17 times in a row because the CD player was broken and stuck on repeat. She'd show him places, drove him past the high school where they'd met. He looked at it like any other building. They went to the diner where they'd had their first date. It had been renovated. Different booths. Different menu. He ate pancakes and said they were fine. At night, she'd hear him in the bedroom writing in his journals. Sometimes she'd stand outside his door and just listen to the scratch of pen on paper and wonder what he was writing, if he was getting closer to remembering or further away. She asked him once if she could read what he was writing now. He said, It's mostly just me trying to figure out who I am, who I was, whether those are the same person or if I'm starting over. What do you think? I think I'm starting over, he said, and I don't know if that's sad or liberating. January turned into February. She started applying for jobs, needed to work, needed income, couldn't live off savings forever. She got a position at a nonprofit, data entry, boring but stable, decent pay, health insurance that covered both of them once she added him to her plan. He felt guilty about that too. You shouldn't have to support me. What else would I do, she said. Leave you to figure it out alone. Most people would. I'm not most people. He looked at her for a long moment. No, you're really not. 2 months in, he started helping around the apartment. Small things at first. He'd do the dishes after dinner, fold the laundry, vacuum on Saturdays. She'd come home from work and find the place cleaner than she'd left it. You don't have to do this, she said. I know, but I want to. I need to feel useful. He started cooking too. Simple stuff. Pasta, sandwiches. He bought a cookbook and worked his way through it page by page. Some meals were good, some were disasters. She ate every single one and never complained. One night in late February, he made chicken parmesan. She took one bite and stopped. What's wrong? He asked. Is it bad? No, she said. It's perfect. You used to make this for me, in high school. You'd cook it at your house and bring it over in Tupperware. He looked at the plate. Did I use the same recipe? I don't know, but it tastes exactly the same. He set down his fork, stared at the food like it might tell him something. I don't remember making it before. I saw the recipe and something in me said this was right. This was what I should make. Maybe your hands remember even if your brain doesn't. He flexed his fingers. That's a weird thought. Most of this is weird. Yeah, he said. It really is. 2.5 months in, something shifted, small at first. He started asking her questions, not about their past, about her present, what she did at work, what she liked to read, what movies she watched, what she wanted to do with her life. She'd answer and he'd listen like he was memorizing every word. And slowly they started having real conversations, not about who they used to be, about who they were now. They'd sit on the couch at night, him on one end, her on the other, careful distance between them, and talk about everything. Politics, books, whether pineapple belongs on pizza, stupid stuff, important stuff, all of it. He told her about the hospital, about how lonely it was, how the nurses were kind but busy, how he'd sit in that rec room and watch other patients get visitors, wives, kids, parents, and wonder if anyone out there was missing him. Were you missing me? He asked one night, before Patricia found you. She thought about how to answer that. Yes, even though you thought I was dead. Especially because I thought you were dead. He was quiet for a moment. Did you try to move on, date other people? Once, it didn't work out. Why not? Because I kept comparing him to you, and he wasn't you, so it felt wrong. That's not fair to you, he said, to be stuck on someone who can't even remember you. Life isn't fair, she said, but I'm not stuck. I made a choice. To do what? To be here, with you, figuring this out. 3 months in, he started having flashes. Not full memories, just fragments, feelings without context. The smell of her shampoo would hit him and he'd get this look on his face like he was trying to catch something that was slipping away. The way she'd tap her pen when she was thinking. He mentioned it one day. You've always done that, haven't you? Done what? The pen thing, when you're working on something. You tap it against your teeth. She looked at the pen in her hand. She was doing it right then. How did you know that? I don't know, I know it. Like my brain filed it away somewhere and just now pulled it back out. The sound of her laugh. He started trying to make her laugh more often. Stupid jokes. Silly faces. One night she laughed so hard she snorted and he stopped what he was doing and just stared at her. What? She said. That sound. I know that sound. Me snorting. You laughing like that, so hard you can't breathe. I've heard it before. You have. You used to make me laugh like that all the time. He smiled, but it was bittersweet. I wish I could remember what I said. You'd make stupid puns, really bad ones. I'd tell you to stop and you'd just keep going until I was laughing too hard to protest. Tell me one. She thought, okay. We were studying for chemistry and you said, I'm reading a book on anti-gravity. It's impossible to put down. He groaned. That's terrible. I know. I told you that. You just grinned and kept going. He tried the grin, practiced it. Like this. She felt her chest tighten. Yeah, exactly like that. 3.5 months in, he noticed patterns. The way she'd tuck her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. The way she'd scrunch her nose when she didn't like something but was too polite to say so. The way she'd hum while she cooked. Have you always hummed when you cook? He asked. I don't know. Do I hum? Yeah, the same tune over and over. I don't know what it is, but it's familiar. She hadn't even realized she was doing it, but he was right. She hummed the same song every time, a song from high school, one they used to listen to together. 4 months in, he asked her why she was sleeping on the couch. Because you have the bedroom, she said. This is your apartment. I should be on the couch. You need the space. The bed is better for your back. My back is fine now, and your back is definitely not fine. I can hear you groaning when you stand up in the morning. I'm fine. You're not, he stood up. I'm taking the couch, you take the bedroom. They argued about it for 20 minutes. Finally, she said, what if we both take the bedroom? He froze. What? There's room. We're both adults. We can share a space without it being weird. Are you sure? She wasn't sure of anything. But she was tired of sleeping on the couch, tired of the distance, tired of pretending they were strangers when they weren't. Not really. Yeah, she said, I'm sure. That night they set up the room, bed in the center. Her stuff on one side, his on the other, like college roommates. Polite, careful. They got ready for bed in shifts. She changed in the bathroom. He changed while she was brushing her teeth. They got into bed and lay there in the dark. Miles between them even though they were only feet apart. This is weird, he said finally. Yeah. Good weird or bad weird? I don't know yet. They didn't sleep much that first night, both too aware of the other, but eventually it got easier. By the end of the week, it felt almost normal. By the end of the month, she couldn't remember why they'd waited so long. 4.5 months in, he told her about a dream he'd had. They were having coffee on a Sunday morning. She was reading the news on her phone. He was sketching in his journal, something his therapist had suggested to help with memory and motor skills. I dreamed about you last night, he said. She looked up. Yeah. We were younger. In school, I think. You were wearing this blue sweater and we were sitting in a parking lot in a car. And you were crying. And I was holding your hand and I said something, but I can't remember what. But whatever it was made you laugh even though you were crying. My mom's throat got tight. She knew that memory. The parking lot. The blue sweater. He'd told her his grandfather had died and then made some stupid joke about heaven getting a new poker champion, and she'd laughed and cried at the same time. That happened, she said. Really? Really? What did I say? In the dream? She told him. He wrote it down in his journal, added it to his collection of fragments. I'm getting closer, he said. I can feel it, like the memories are right there, I just can't reach them yet. What if you can't, ever? He thought about it. Then I guess I make new ones, different ones, but ones that matter just as much. 5 months in, he kissed her. They were in the kitchen. She was making breakfast. He was making coffee. They'd developed this routine, moving around each other like a dance. She'd reach for a pan and he'd hand it to her before she asked. He'd need a mug and she'd have it ready. She was scrambling eggs, and he came up beside her to grab the salt and their hands touched, and they both froze. He didn't move, neither did she. Can I try something? He asked. Okay. He turned her gently so she was facing him, put one hand on her waist, the other on her face, and kissed her. Soft, careful, like he was afraid she'd disappear if he pushed too hard. She kissed him back. When he pulled away, he said, "Was that okay?" "Yeah." "Have we done that before?" "Yeah." "Was it like that?" "Not exactly. We were younger then, different people." "Better or worse?" "Just different." He smiled. "Good different." "Yeah, good different." He kissed her again, less careful this time, more certain, and she felt something shift. Like maybe they weren't trying to recreate what they had before. Maybe they were building something new. 5.5 months in, he started calling her by her first name instead of nothing. He'd been avoiding names, calling her hey or excuse me or just waiting until she looked at him. But one morning he woke up and said her name and it felt right. 6 months in, he made her laugh so hard she cried and he said, "I like that sound." "What sound?" "Your laugh. I think I've been trying to make you laugh this whole time without realizing it. Like some part of me knew that's what I was supposed to do." "You're supposed to make me laugh." "I don't know, it just feels right. Like that's my job or something." She kissed him. "It is your job, it always was." 7 months in, he had his first real memory. Complete, full, not just a fragment. They were cooking dinner together. She was cutting vegetables and he was stirring something on the stove, and suddenly he stopped. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I remember this." "Remember what?" "This, not this exactly, but something like this. We were in a kitchen. Your parents' house, maybe. You were teaching me how to make pasta. Actual pasta. From scratch. And I kept messing up the dough and you were laughing at me. And I said something like, 'I'm better at chemistry than cooking,' and you said, 'That's not saying much,' and I threw flour at you." My mom set down her knife. "That happened. That was real. That was the summer before you enlisted." He turned off the stove, hands shaking. "I can see it. I can see your face. The way you looked when you were laughing, the flower in your hair, the way the sunlight was coming through the window." "What else?" "You kissed me. After. You were covered in flour and you kissed me anyway and said something about me being a disaster in the kitchen, but that's okay because you'd cook for us." "For us?" "That's what you said. Like you were already planning a future, like you knew." My mom's eyes filled with tears. "I did know. I knew we'd figure it out somehow." He started crying, just stood there at the stove with tears running down his face. She turned off all the burners and held him while he cried, and he said, "What if it all comes back and I'm different? What if I remember everything and I'm not who you want me to be?" "Then we'll figure it out," she said. "Together." "You keep saying that, together, like it's that simple." "It is that simple, and that complicated, but mostly it's just a choice, and I keep choosing you." 8 months in, the memories started coming more regularly. Still not everything. Still lots of gaps, but enough that he was starting to piece together who he'd been. He remembered graduation. The way his dad had hugged him and said he was proud. The way that had felt like a weight lifting off his chest. He remembered enlisting, the recruiter's office, signing the papers, feeling like he was finally doing something that mattered. He remembered basic training, how hard it was, how many times he'd wanted to quit, how he'd thought about her every night before falling asleep. He remembered the deployment, some of it enough, the heat, the dust, the fear, the moment when everything went wrong. With each memory came emotion he didn't know how to process. Anger at himself for enlisting when he could have stayed. Fear from the things he'd seen. Grief for the time he'd lost. His therapist said this was normal, that the brain was releasing everything it had locked away, but normal didn't make it easier. There were bad days, days he'd wake up confused, days he'd forget where he was and think he was still deployed, days he'd have flashbacks so vivid he couldn't tell what was memory and what was present. The first time it happened, my mom was at work. He called her crying, said he didn't know where he was. She left work immediately, drove home doing 20 over the speed limit, found him sitting on the bathroom floor rocking back and forth. She sat with him, didn't try to touch him, just talked, soft voice, steady. "You're in Virginia, you're in my apartment, you're safe, you're home." She said it over and over until he could breathe again, until he could see her, until he came back. After that, she started working from home more. Her boss was understanding, gave her flexibility. She'd work from the couch with her laptop while he drew in his journal. Just being in the same room helped, kept him grounded. But there were good days too, days he'd remember something sweet. The first time he'd told her he loved her, they'd been in his car, parked outside her house after a date. He just said it. No build-up, no plan, "I love you." And she'd said it back without hesitation. He remembered their road trip, the summer before senior year. They'd driven to the coast with no plan, just drove until they ran out of land, slept in the car, ate gas station snacks, watched the sunrise over the ocean. He remembered the way she'd fall asleep during movies. Every time. Didn't matter what they were watching. She'd make it 20 minutes and then her head would drop to his shoulder. "You always denied it," he said. "Because I wasn't sleeping. I was resting my eyes." "For 45 minutes. "Yes." He laughed, really laughed. "You haven't changed." "Neither have you. Not really." 9 months in, he remembered the fight. The real one, the one before he left. He woke up at 2 a.m. and she heard him get out of bed. She found him in the kitchen with his head in his hands. "I remember what I said to you," he said. "Before I left, I said if you really loved me, you'd wait. Like it was that easy. Like I wasn't asking you to put your entire life on hold while I went off and did something I knew you didn't want me to do." She sat next to him. "I remember too. I was cruel. I made it about your feelings instead of taking responsibility for mine. I couldn't admit I was scared. Couldn't admit I was running away from something I couldn't name. So I made you the bad guy. We were both scared. Yeah, but I left anyway. I chose the military over you, and I told myself it was about service, but really I just didn't know how to stay." "Are you angry at yourself?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to be. But the person who made that choice feels so far away now, like he was someone else." "Maybe he was." He looked at her. "Do you forgive him, that version of me?" "I forgave him a long time ago," she said. "Honestly, I forgave him about 6 months into reading his letters. He was just a kid trying to figure his life out. We both were." For 3 days after that memory, he was quiet, processing. My mom didn't push, just let him sit with it. Finally, he said, "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For leaving the way I did, for making you wait, for dying without actually dying, for coming back but not being able to remember you, for all of it. You don't have to apologize for getting hurt. But I do have to apologize for the rest." She took his hand. "Okay, then I accept your apology, and I'm sorry too, for the things I said, for not writing you sooner, for wasting time being angry when I should have been honest." "Deal." Deal. 10 months in, he remembered the explosion. The IED. The moment everything went dark. He woke up screaming. She grabbed him and he fought her at first. Didn't know where he was. Thought he was back there. Back in the moment when his entire world ended. She held him and talked him down. "You're here. You're safe. You're home. You're with me." He was shaking so hard his teeth chattered. "I thought I was dead. When I woke up in the hospital, I didn't know where I was or who I was, but I knew I was supposed to be dead." "But you're not dead. You're here. You made it." "I left you," he said. "I left and I broke your heart and I came back wrong and I don't know how to fix that." "You're not wrong. You're different. But so am I and we're figuring it out." "Are we though?" "Yeah, we are." He pulled back to look at her. "How are you so sure?" "Because I've lost you before, and I'm not losing you again. So whatever this is, whatever we're building, we're going to make it work." 11 months in October 2010, something changed. He started sleeping better, having fewer flashbacks. His therapist said he was processing the trauma, that the memories coming back was actually helping him heal instead of hurting him. He started talking about the future. Small things at first, maybe taking a class, learning a trade, getting a job, contributing financially instead of just living off her insurance and disability checks. She told him there was no rush. He said he knew, but he wanted to feel like a partner, not a patient. "You're already a partner," she said. "Am I?" "Yeah, you cook, You clean, you make me laugh. You hold me when I have bad days. That's partnership. I want to do more. Then we'll figure out what more looks like. He started volunteering at the VA hospital where he did his therapy, helping other patients, talking to guys who'd been through similar things. Turned out he was good at it, good at listening, good at understanding without judgment. He came home one day and said, "I think I want to be a counselor, for veterans, help people like me." That would be amazing. It would take years. I'd have to go back to school, get a degree. So I'm already behind, already starting over. I'll be ancient by the time I finish. You'll be the same age whether you do it or not. Might as well do it. He smiled. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just forgot. November 2010. 11 months and 3 weeks. He woke up one morning and everything was different. He opened his eyes and knew, just knew. Everything was there, all of it. Every memory, every moment. The good and the bad and the everything in between. He got out of bed carefully, didn't want to wake her, went to the kitchen and just stood there processing. His whole life, every second, from childhood to this exact moment, it was all there. He made coffee. She came out half asleep and found him sitting at the table with his head in his hands. "You okay?" she asked. He looked up. "I remember." She froze. "Remember what?" "Everything," he said. "All of it. I remember loving you in high school. I remember thinking you were uptight the first time we met and then realizing you were just scared of failing. I remember the chemistry project, the diner, prom, the parking lot when my grandfather died, the fight before I left, enlisting, writing you letters, deployment, the explosion, waking up in the hospital not knowing my own name. The last year, all of it. I remember falling in love with you twice. Once when I was 17 and had no idea what love meant. And again this year when I couldn't remember I'd already loved you, but I felt it anyway." She sat down across from him. "How do you feel?" "Grateful," he said. "Terrified, overwhelmed, like I've been given something I don't deserve." "You deserve it," she said. "Do I?" He leaned forward. "I put you through hell. I left. I made you think I was dead. I came back broken. And you still brought me into your home, took care of me, loved me when I couldn't even remember why I was worth loving. How do I deserve that?" "Because you would have done the same for me." "Would I?" "Yes, without question, without hesitation. If it had been me in that hospital, you would have gotten on a plane. You would have brought me home. You would have waited as long as it took." He reached across the table and took her hand. "I loved you so much back then, so much it scared me. That's why I enlisted. Not because I wanted to serve, because I didn't know how to be the person you needed me to be. And I thought if I became someone else, someone braver, someone better, maybe I'd be worth what you were offering. You were always worth it. I didn't know that then, but I know it now, because you showed me. Every day for the last year you showed me." They sat there holding hands across the table. Coffee getting cold. Sun coming up outside the window. Two people who'd loved and lost and found each other again. "What happens now?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. "I remember everything, but I'm not the same person I was before. That kid who enlisted, I understand him, but I'm not him anymore. And the person I've become this year with you, that feels more real than anything I remember." "So you're all of it." "Yeah, I guess I am." He squeezed her hand. "Is that okay?" "It's better than okay." They spent the rest of that day just talking. He told her everything he remembered about his deployment. The things he'd never written in letters because he didn't want to scare her. The close calls. The friends he'd lost. The moment the IED went off and he'd thought, "This is it, I'm done." He told her about waking up in the hospital in Germany. The confusion. The fear. How they'd kept him sedated for weeks while his brain swelled and his body tried to figure out how to survive. He told her about the transfer to Nevada, about the first few months when he couldn't even feed himself, about learning to walk again, about the frustration of knowing something was missing but not knowing what. "I'd have these moments," he said, "where I'd feel something, like grief or love or longing, but I didn't know what it was for, didn't know what I was missing, just knew there was a hole where something used to be." And now the hole is filled, because you filled it. You came and found me when you had every reason not to, when it would have been easier to just keep believing I was dead. And you brought me back, not just physically. You brought back the parts of me I thought were gone forever. The next few months were different, better and harder at the same time. Better because he remembered, because they had their shared history back, because they could talk about before without it feeling like she was telling stories to a stranger. Harder because remembering meant processing, meant dealing with all the emotions he'd locked away, the trauma, the guilt, the grief. He had nightmares, worse than before, because now when he had flashbacks, he knew exactly what he was seeing, knew the names of the people who'd died, knew the smell and the sound and the feeling of the explosion. Some nights he couldn't sleep at all. He'd sit up in bed and just stare at the wall, and she'd sit with him in the dark until morning came. He started going to a trauma specialist, twice a week, sometimes 3 times if he was having a bad week. The therapist taught him coping mechanisms, grounding techniques, how to separate past from present. It helped slowly, gradually. The bad nights became less frequent. The flashbacks became more manageable. But he still had hard days. Days when the weight of everything felt like too much. Days when he'd look at her and think, you deserve better than this. Better than a broken person you have to piece back together. She'd tell him he wasn't broken, just healing. And healing takes time. December 2010. They'd been living together for a year. He'd had his full memory back for 5 weeks. Things were settling into a new normal. He was enrolled in community college, taking classes toward a psychology degree, 2 classes to start. Didn't want to overwhelm himself, but it felt good to be working toward something. He'd cut back on volunteering at the VA, but still went once a week. Said it helped him to help other people, made him feel less alone in what he'd been through. My mom had gotten a promotion at work, better pay, better hours. They'd talked about moving to a bigger apartment but decided to stay put. The small space felt like home now. Christmas came, their first Christmas together in 7 years. She bought him a new journal, leather-bound, nice paper. He bought her a necklace, simple silver chain with a small pendant. "I saw it and thought of you," he said when she opened it. "When?" "Back in high school. We walked past a jewelry store at the mall and you stopped to look at it. Said it was perfect. Simple and classic. I remembered that, when my memory came back, so I found it." She cried, put it on and didn't take it off. New Year's came, 2011. They stayed up till midnight watching the ball drop on TV. When the countdown hit 0, he kissed her and said, "New year, fresh start." "We've kind of already started," she said. "Yeah, but now it's official." January was hard. The anniversary of him leaving basic training, the anniversary of his deployment. He got quiet around those dates, withdrawn. She gave him space but stayed close. February was better, lighter somehow. He joined a support group for veterans with TBI, traumatic brain injury, met once a week, came home and told her about the other guys, how they understood in a way most people couldn't. "They get it," he said. "The gaps, the feeling of being stuck between who you were and who you are now. It helps to know I'm not alone in it." March, he aced his midterms, called her from campus so excited he could barely talk. She could hear the smile in his voice. "I got a 96 on my psych exam." "That's amazing." "I know, and my professor said I should consider grad school eventually. Like actually consider it, like I could actually do this." "You can do this." "Yeah, I think I can." March 14th, 2011. Almost a year and a half since he'd come home with her. Almost 6 months since his memory returned. A Sunday morning. They'd started this tradition. Sunday mornings were theirs. No alarms, no obligations. They'd make coffee and sit in the tiny backyard of their apartment building. 2 plastic chairs under a tree that was just starting to bud with spring. They'd sit out there for hours sometimes, just talking, or not talking, just being together. This particular Sunday was warm, unseasonably warm for March in Virginia. She was reading a book. He was sketching her. He'd gotten good at drawing over the past year. His therapist said it helped with hand-eye coordination. But mostly he just liked capturing moments. She looked up from her book and caught him staring. "What?" she said. "Nothing, just thinking." "About?" He set down his sketchbook. "About how I almost missed this." "Missed what?" "This, you, us. If Patricia hadn't found you, if you hadn't gotten on that plane, if you decided I wasn't worth the trouble, I would have missed all of this." "But you didn't miss it." "No, thanks to you I didn't." She went back to her book. He picked up his sketchbook. They sat in comfortable silence. Then she set her book down. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Are you happy?" He thought about it, really thought about it. "Yeah, I am, are you?" "Yeah." "Good." More silence. Then she said, "I want to ask you something else, but it's kind of big." He set down his sketchbook again. "Okay." She turned her chair to face him. "Will you marry me?" He laughed, not mean, just surprised. "Shouldn't I be asking you that?" "Why?" she said. "I'm the one who decided we weren't done. I'm the one who went to Nevada. I'm the one who brought you home. I'm the one who chose you every single day for over a year when you couldn't choose yourself. So I'm asking, will you marry me?" He stared at her. "Are you serious?" "Completely. We've only been actually together, like dating together, for like 6 months. We've been together on and off for 8 years, technically, and I already know everything about you, the good stuff and the hard stuff, and I still want this. I want you for real, officially, so will you?" He stood up, pulled her to her feet, kissed her hard. When he pulled back, he said, "Yes. Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. I'd marry you right now if we could." She started crying, happy crying. He wiped her tears with his thumbs and said, "I don't have a ring." "I don't need a ring. I want to get you one, though. A real one, not something cheap, something that lasts. We can't really afford that right now. Then we'll save up. We're not in a rush." But they were in a rush. Once they'd decided, neither of them wanted to wait. They started planning immediately. Small ceremony. That was the only thing they agreed on from the start. Small and simple, just the people who mattered. Her parents, his parents, her best friend from high school, his buddy from the support group. Patricia, they'd invited her and she'd cried on the phone and said of course she'd come. They picked a date in May, 2 months away. Enough time to plan, but not so far away that they'd overthink it. They went ring shopping, found a simple gold band that fit her perfectly. She insisted on getting him one too. Matching set. Her mom helped with the dress. Nothing fancy. Simple white dress that hit just below the knee. She looked beautiful. His dad helped him pick a suit. Navy blue, made him look older, more settled. The wedding was on May 14th, 2011. Almost exactly 2 years after my mom had gotten that letter from Patricia. Almost exactly 5 years after my mom had gotten the call saying he was dead. They got married at a small chapel. 30 people. Simple vows. She cried through the whole thing, happy tears. So did his mom. So did Patricia. When the minister said, "You may kiss the bride," my dad dipped her. Dramatic, made everyone laugh. That was pure him. The old him and the new him. Showing off and making her laugh all at once. The reception was at a restaurant. Nothing fancy. Good food, good music, dancing. Her dad pulled him aside at one point and said, "You take care of her." My dad said, "That's the plan. For the rest of my life, that's the plan." His mom pulled my mom aside and said, "Thank you." "For what?" "For not giving up on him, for bringing him back to us. We thought we'd lost him forever." "I couldn't give up," my mom said. "I tried, but I couldn't." They honeymooned in the same beach town they'd driven to on their high school road trip. Stayed in a cheap motel, ate seafood, watched the sunrise. "I remember the first time we came here," he said. "Yeah. We slept in the car because we couldn't afford a room. You complained the whole time about your neck hurting." "It did hurt." "I know, but you still said it was the best weekend of your life." "It was, until now." They came back to Virginia and started their life. Real life, married life. He kept going to school. She kept working. They lived in the same small apartment. Started talking about maybe buying a house someday, having kids someday. All the normal future stuff. My oldest sister was born in April 2012. They named her after Patricia. Middle name, not first, but still. Patricia cried when they told her. My dad graduated with his associate's degree when my sister was 6 months old. Applied to a 4-year program for his bachelor's. Got accepted. My mom's boss let her work part-time so she could stay home with the baby more. Money was tight, but they made it work. My brother was born in October 2014. 2 kids under 3. Chaos, beautiful chaos. My dad finished his bachelor's in 2015. Applied for grad school. Got into a master's program for clinical psychology with a specialization in trauma. My other sister was born in March 2016. 3 kids. My mom said they were done. My dad agreed. Except I came along in December 2018. Surprise baby. They joke that I'm the one who made their family complete. My dad finished his master's in 2018. Started working at the VA as a counselor, helping veterans work through trauma and PTSD, using everything he'd learned from his own experience. My mom went back to work full-time once I was in preschool, got promoted again. Now she's a director at her nonprofit. We moved into a real house when I was 4, nothing fancy but it's ours. Backyard, front porch, 4 bedrooms. They still drink coffee in the backyard on Sunday mornings. I'll go out sometimes and sit with them. They'll be in their chairs under the tree, and I'll sit on the grass and just listen to them talk. Sometimes they talk about the past, about high school, about the letters, about the hospital in Nevada, about the year he couldn't remember her. Sometimes my dad will get quiet, and my mom will reach over and hold his hand, and they don't have to say anything. They just sit there together. I asked my dad once if he still has nightmares. I was maybe 15, old enough to understand but young enough to ask directly. He said yes, not as often, maybe once a month now instead of once a week, but they still come. Does it ever go away? I asked. I don't think so, he said, but it gets easier to live with, and your mom makes it easier. How? She reminds me I'm here, that I made it, that I have something worth staying present for. I asked my mom once what made her get on that plane, why she didn't just let it go. She thought about it for a long time. Then she said, because I'd already lost him once, and I survived it. Barely, but I survived. And the thought of losing him again when I had a chance to find him, I couldn't do it. I couldn't survive that twice. What if he'd never remembered you? Then I learned to be okay with that. I built something new with whoever he'd become, because having him alive and not remembering was better than having him dead. Do you ever regret it? Never, not once, not even on the hard days. There were hard days, our hard days. My dad still struggles sometimes. Anniversaries of the explosion, dates that trigger memories he'd rather not have. But mostly there are good days, normal days, days where he goes to work and helps other people heal, days where my mom comes home and they cook dinner together, days where all 4 of us kids are home and the house is loud and chaotic and full. My dad jokes that he lived 2 lives, the one before the explosion and the one after. And the one after is better because he gets to live it consciously, gratefully, with the understanding that it ended differently. My mom says they've lived 3 lives, the one before he left, the 3 years she thought he was dead, and everything since. And the 3rd life is the one where they both chose each other instead of letting circumstances choose for them. Last Thanksgiving they told us the whole story, all of it, the parts they'd glossed over before, the memorial service, the grief, the hospital, the journals, the slow rebuild. My oldest sister cried. She's emotional like my dad, feels everything deeply. My brother got quiet. He's like my mom, processes internally. My other sister kept interrupting with questions. She's the analytical one, wanted to understand the timeline, the gaps, how it all fit together. I just listened. trying to wrap my head around the fact that I almost didn't exist. That if hadn't found that journal, if my mom hadn't gotten on a plane, if my dad hadn't written her name over and over in his dreams, if any single thing had gone differently. After they finished telling the story, my dad said, "I know it's a lot, and I know it's heavy, but we wanted you to know the real version, not the cleaned-up version we've been telling people for years." "Why tell us now?" my brother asked. My mom and dad looked at each other. That look they do. The one where they have entire conversations without words. Then my dad said, "Because you're old enough to understand that love isn't simple, that it's messy and complicated and sometimes it hurts. But when it's real, when it's worth fighting for, you fight. You get on the plane, you set up the guest room, you wait a year for someone to remember you. You do whatever it takes." My mom added, "And because we want you to know that it's okay to be broken, to struggle, to need help. Your dad needed help and I gave it. And there have been times I've needed help and he's given it. That's what partnership is. Not being perfect, just being there." So yeah, that's their story. That's how I exist. That's how any of us exist. And I think about it a lot now. How many things had to go right for me to be sitting here telling you this? Had to notice the journals. Had to take the time to read them. Had to care enough about a patient to do some detective work and track down my mom. My mom had to open that letter. She almost didn't. She'd stopped opening sympathy mail months before, but something made her open that one. She had to get on the plane. She decided it was too much, too painful, too risky, but she didn't. My dad had to write in those journals. Had to write my mom's name over and over even when he didn't know why. Had to hold on to something his conscious mind couldn't access, but his heart wouldn't let go of. They both had to choose each other every single day for a year when it'd been easier to walk away. And I'm here because they did all of that, because love was stubborn enough to survive. People ask me sometimes what love is, like they expect some deep philosophical answer. But I think love is what my mom did. Love is getting on a plane when you have every reason to stay home. Love is setting up a guest room. Love is waiting a year for someone to remember why they loved you in the first place. Love is proposing on a Sunday morning because you're the one who decided this story wasn't over. It's not romantic the way movies make it romantic. It's not a single grand gesture. It's 1,000 small choices. It's choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. It's choosing to hope when hope feels dangerous. It's choosing to build something new when the old thing is broken. My dad still has nightmares sometimes, still has hard days, still has moments where the past crashes into the present and he has to remember how to breathe through it. My mom still has moments where she'll look at him and you can see it on her face, the ghost of that grief she carried for 3 years, the memory of thinking she'd lost him forever. But they're here, and they chose each other, and somehow that's everything. I'm same age my mom was when she got that call. Same age she was when her world ended, and she had to figure out how to keep going anyway. I can't imagine what that took, what kind of strength, what kind of stubbornness, what kind of love. But I'm grateful for it, because that strength is why I'm here, why my siblings are here, why our whole family exists. My oldest sister is in med school now, says she wants to work with veterans, help people like our dad. She's got his emotional intensity and mom's determination. Dangerous combination. My brother is in the Marines. Yeah, I know. My mom cried for a week when he enlisted, but my dad understood. Said sometimes you have to walk the hard path to figure out who you are. My brother calls home every week, writes actual letters. My mom keeps them all in a box. My other sister is studying psychology, wants to do trauma research. Says our dad's story inspired her. She's probably going to write her dissertation about memory and love and the way the brain protects us from things we're not ready to handle. And me, I'm still figuring it out. But I think I want to write, tell stories, not fiction, true stuff. The messy, complicated human stuff that doesn't fit into easy narratives. Because that's what my parents taught me, that real stories aren't clean. They don't have perfect endings. They have endings where people are still healing, still growing, still figuring it out. But they're trying, and that's what matters. Last Sunday, I went out to the backyard where my parents were having coffee. I sat on the grass between their chairs and just listened to them talk about nothing important. What to make for dinner, whether to finally replace the fence, normal stuff. And my dad reached over and held my mom's hand. They do that a lot, just hold hands, like they're making sure the other person is still there. I asked them if they ever think about how different things been, if any single thing had gone differently, if hadn't found the journal, if my mom hadn't gotten on the plane, if my dad had never written her name down. My mom said, all the time, but not in a scary way, in a grateful way. My dad said, I think some part of me was always trying to find my way back to her, and some part of her refused to let me go. That's just love being stubborn. Is that what you want us to remember? I asked. That love is stubborn. They looked at each other, did that wordless communication thing again. Then my mom said, no, we want you to remember that love is a choice, not a feeling. Feelings come and go. But choosing to stay, choosing to show up, choosing to fight for something even when it's hard, that's what makes it real. My dad added, and we want you to know that broken doesn't mean unlovable. That needing help doesn't make you weak. That letting someone help you might be the bravest thing you ever do. I think about that a lot now, about bravery, about how we think bravery is facing danger or doing hard things alone. But maybe the real bravery is letting someone see you when you're broken, letting someone help you when you can't help yourself, letting someone love you when you don't know how to love yourself back. My dad did that. Let my mom help him. Let her love him when he couldn't remember why he was worth loving. And that was brave. My mom did that too. Let herself hope again after 3 years of grief. Let herself risk her heart on someone who might never remember her. Let herself build something new instead of clinging to what used to be. And that was brave too. They're both brave, in different ways. And together they're braver than either of them could be alone. That's the thing about love, I think. It doesn't make you weaker. It makes you braver. Because suddenly you have something worth being brave for. My dad went to war because he didn't know what else to do, came back broken. But my mom made him brave enough to heal, brave enough to let someone in, brave enough to build a life when he'd almost lost his. And my mom, who'd already survived losing him once, was brave enough to risk losing him again, brave enough to get on that plane, brave enough to wait a year for him to remember her, brave enough to propose on a Sunday morning and say, I choose you, again, always. People say true love conquers all, but that's not quite right. True love doesn't conquer anything. It just refuses to quit. It gets back up every time it gets knocked down. It finds a way even when there doesn't seem to be one. It holds on when letting go would be easier. And sometimes that stubbornness, that refusal to give up, is what saves everything. Because some people are worth the wait. Some love is worth the fight. Some stories are worth the struggle to tell. This is one of those stories. Thanks for listening. And if you're going through something right now, if you're waiting for someone or healing from someone or trying to figure out if holding on is brave or just stupid, I hope my parents' story helps.